My mom always told me a single drop of my blood could be someone's whole world.
My mom always told me a single drop of my blood could be someone's whole world. I thought she was just being poetic. The Bronx, New York, 5:40 in the morning. A fluorescent light in the hallway of the blood donation center flickered every 2 seconds. It'd been doing that for 2 years, and nobody had bothered to fix it. Amina Brooks was the one person in the building most used to that flicker. She'd just clocked out after a 12-hour night shift. The lining of her jacket still smelled like hospital disinfectant. The blood draw chair was cold the way it always was, and Amina didn't even notice anymore. The nurse on duty stuck the needle in and asked, without really thinking about it, "How many times is this for you this month?" 24. The nurse's hand stopped. In that silence sat equal parts surprise and something close to guilt. Amina saw it, and she didn't explain herself. The first time she'd told someone why she started donating, she'd never liked the look on their face. So she just took the orange juice and left it at that. After every donation, Amina always took the same seat, the plastic chair by the window. She'd hold the cup of orange juice and just sit there, phone untouched, doing absolutely nothing. That window of time felt like a kind of permission, like she was allowed to just exist without having to be useful for once. Outside, the morning commute was already streaming by. The city was waking up, and Amina had just given away a piece of herself. "Mom, am I doing this right?" An answer never came. The orange juice just got a little warmer. St. Luke's Community Hospital was the oldest public hospital in the Bronx. The paint on the outer wall had been peeling for years, and at some point someone had spray painted, "This is why we're still alive," over the bare concrete. 5 years later, it was still there. Nobody had the budget to cover it up, or maybe nobody wanted to. Either way, it became the first thing Amina saw every single morning when she walked in. Amina had been at St. Luke's for 6 years, head nurse of the ER. The title sounded pretty impressive, but the reality was something else. The night shift was chronically understaffed, and Amina was always the one plugging the gaps. Every time a colleague packed up and moved to a better-paying hospital, Amina stayed. Whether she couldn't leave or just chose not to, she couldn't quite say. It just felt like her hallway, like she belonged there. One Monday in November, the lobby had a different energy. 4 guys in suits were standing near the entrance, talking in low voices. One of them was filming the hospital's interior layout on a tablet. Amina watched from the far end of the corridor. It felt like someone was peering through the windows of her home, uncomfortable in a way she recognized but couldn't fully name. Her coworker Brittany came up right behind her. "Word is, it's KM Group, some Korean medical conglomerate. Guess those rumors about them buying St. Luke's were real." Amina stopped walking. The rumors had been floating around for 2 months, but she'd written them off as just that, rumors. St. Luke's was the oldest public hospital in the Bronx. The idea that someone was going to buy it, and why, hadn't made sense to her. She couldn't wrap her head around it. Jamin Kang walked into the lobby at 11 in the morning. Black coat, black tie. You wouldn't guess he was 38 just by looking at him. His face didn't seem to carry his age. The way his eyes moved across the room was the way someone scans a space to calculate its value. Fast. He wasn't looking at the building. He was looking at the land it sat on. His team followed close behind, eyes locked on their tablets, walking briskly. None of them looked at the patients in the waiting area. Their gaze just didn't go there. Jamin shook hands with Director Lee. Dr. Lee took it with both hands. Amina watched the whole thing from the end of the hallway. You can always tell who's got the power just by the handshake. One of Jamin's team members threw his hand up toward the waiting room. "We're going to need everyone to clear the area for a bit. Safety inspection." An elderly man in the waiting area slowly stood up, fiddling with his hearing aid. A woman sitting nearby gathered her child and got up too. Amina watched their backs as they walked out. Something inside her went quiet, but it went solid at the same time. Amina walked forward. Some of these patients have been waiting over 2 hours. Could you run the inspection in a different section? That was the first time Jamin actually looked at Amina. Maybe a second, tops. His eyes grazed her face and then went straight back to the tablet. Take it up with the director. And that was it. Amina didn't back down. The director's not available right now. I'm the head nurse for this section. Under patient care protocol, I have the authority to restrict unnecessary movement. The oldest looking man on Jamin's team cut in. You can talk protocol with our legal team. We're on a schedule. The message in that voice was unmistakable. This conversation was over. The lobby went quiet. Patients who just stepped out, nurses passing through, everyone froze. An ambulance siren wailed past outside, and nobody even turned to look. Jamin looked at Amina again. Longer this time. Top to bottom, then back up. When he spoke, his voice carried zero emotion. Which one's the cleaning staff? Everyone in that lobby understood exactly who that question was aimed at. Amina's nurse badge was right there where Jamin's eyes had been. He might have seen it. Maybe he had, and said it anyway. Brittany sucked in a sharp breath behind her. Director Lee opened his mouth, then closed it. The elderly man who'd been making his way back from the waiting area stopped where he stood. Amina smiled. Small. Not loud, but clear, cool and sharp. I'm head nurse Amina Brooks. Cleaning staff is on B1. You're looking for the facilities team. Jamin didn't react. He wasn't interested. He turned and walked toward the director's office, his team filing in behind him. Amina stood exactly where she was until Jamin's coat disappeared completely behind the door. Brittany came over carefully. You good? Instead of answering, Amina looked toward the waiting area. The elderly man was back in his chair, a folded newspaper resting on his knees. Amina walked over to the front desk, grabbed a cup of water, and brought it to him. Thank you, sweetheart. Amina had this thing where, whenever someone thanked her, the back of her eyes got warm in a way she couldn't explain. It happened again today. Lunch hour. Corner of the cafeteria. Amina sat in front of her tray without picking up her fork. Brittany slid her phone across the table. A news article about KM Group. Jamin Kang, second-generation Korean American, heir to KM Group, which operated a chain of medical tourism complexes spanning New York, Chicago, and LA. The article said they were considering converting St. Luke's into a high-end wellness resort after the acquisition. A wellness resort. While kids are fighting for their lives in here tonight. Amina set down the phone. Through the window, she could see the rooftop of the apartment building across the street. Laundry hanging out. The clothes were swaying in the November wind. Watching that, she thought about her mother, Marcia. Marcia must have looked out windows like this one too. After she lost her job, when the medical bills started stacking up. Marcia Brooks had been a housekeeper until Amina turned 18, going house to house across New York, cleaning, watching children, cooking. Then one day, out of nowhere, she got fired. The reason given was theft. There was no chance to explain herself, no chance to present evidence. Marcia hadn't stolen anything. Amina knew that the way she knew her own name. But one word from the employer stuck to Marcia's name forever. No one would write her a reference. Getting similar work again became nearly impossible. That weight pressed down on the last 15 years of Marcia's life slowly, but it never let up. That's why Amina became a nurse. She'd watched her mother get sick and received nothing close to real treatment. No insurance, no money. So Amina decided she was going to be someone who made sure people got the care they needed, in the places where they needed it. Put it in writing and it sounds grand. The truth was simpler. She just didn't want what happened to her mother to happen to someone else. The hospital was restless all afternoon. Jamin's team went floor by floor taking photos. Nurses kept side-eyeing them, and patients were getting anxious. Director Lee never came out of the conference room. Amina went on her rounds. The patient in bed 4 had higher blood pressure than that morning, probably from the stress of everything happening around them. Amina quietly pulled up a chair and sat beside them for 10 minutes. Sometimes that works better than a prescription. In bed 6 was a 6-year-old girl named Lucia. Both her parents worked, so she was alone in the room most of the day. Amina always paused at that room door when she finished her rounds. If Lucia was holding a comic book, Amina kept walking. If Lucia was staring at the ceiling, Amina went in. That day, she was staring at the ceiling. Amina pulled a chair over and sat down. Lucia looked at her. Are those men gonna tear down our hospital? Kids pick up on scary things faster than adults sometimes. Amina paused, then answered, That's not gonna happen. You've got Nurse Amina, remember? Lucia nodded. That nod had complete trust in it. Toward evening, Amina was passing through the corridor when she caught sight of Jamin's back through the glass door of the director's office. He was pointing at a screen. The display showed a different building superimposed over where St. Luke's stood, a rendering. Glass and white. Good lighting. It's not just the building that gets erased. Amina looked at that image for maybe 3 seconds. It was clean and polished, but to her it looked like an eraser. Something that would rub out this hallway. Rub out Lucia. Rub out the man in bed 4. Rub out the version of herself that pushed through that front door at 5 in the morning. She moved on. 2 hours left until the night shift started. Around 3 in the afternoon, she crossed paths with Jamin in the hallway again. He walked right past her. Whether he didn't recognize her, didn't remember her, or had never really seen her in the first place, she couldn't tell. Expensive cologne drifted out of his coat. It mixed with the disinfectant smell of the corridor, and the combination was strangely unpleasant. To you, this hallway is a line item. I've watched people come back to life in this hallway. Before handing off to the night shift, Amina passed the pediatric ward on the 4th floor. That wing had a separate VIP section, partitioned off from the general ward. Amina had never gotten a close look at it in 6 years. It wasn't her section. Different attending physicians. Charts kept separately. But today, for some reason, she kept thinking about that hallway. There was a light on at the end of the corridor. Amina glanced at it without thinking. A child who looked about 10 was sitting by the window, watching the New York skyline. Something about it gave her pause that was a long time to sit still at that age. She kept walking. 2 emergency patients were already waiting for the night shift. Past midnight, when the ER went quiet for a moment, Amina stood in front of the small mirror in the locker room. Everything about the day had settled into her face. Her nurse badge caught the fluorescent light and glowed faintly. Which one's the cleaning staff? The words kept playing back in her head. Not because she was angry. Well, she was angry. But something deeper than that was moving underneath. She didn't know what it was yet. On her way out, Amina stopped for a moment at the entrance to the parking lot. Her eye caught the spray-painted words on the hospital's outer wall. This is why we're still alive. Next to the lettering, there was a section where the paint had flaked away, leaving the rough, old concrete exposed. It had been there a long time, but it was solid. Solid things don't have to be pretty to last. That night, Amina couldn't fall asleep. She lay staring at the ceiling, trying to hear her mother's voice. Small and low, the voice that used to hum songs while doing the dishes. Mom, they're coming for this place too. Marcia didn't answer. Instead, an ambulance siren passed outside. Amina closed her eyes. She had to be up at 6 the next morning. She kept thinking about that flickering fluorescent light in the donation center. The light nobody fixed. Amina had sat under that light 24 times to give blood. That blood was flowing through someone's body right now. Somewhere in this city, she was sure of it. Someone whose name she didn't know. Someone whose face she'd never seen. Her mom had been right. It wasn't a metaphor. Outside, the Bronx sky sat low and thick with clouds. Not a single star in sight. Hi, I'm Yuna Choi, Chiming Kang's fiance. I'll need the full staff directory by this afternoon. The next morning at 10, someone new walked into the St. Luke's lobby. She had a different kind of presence from the team the day before. Cashmere coat, low-heeled leather shoes, a single small pearl earring below each ear. Nothing flashy, but your eyes went to her anyway. The kind of person you notice without immediately knowing why. Yuna Choi was exactly that kind of person. The receptionist at the front desk froze. Director Lee came out to the lobby. The way he shook her hand was different from the way he'd shaken Jamin's, more careful. Amina watched from the corridor. Yesterday, the heir showed up. Today, it's his fiancée. Brittany sidled up next to Amina. You know she's the one actually running the acquisition, right? Jamin's the face, but she's the one calling the shots. Amina watched Yuna. She was holding a tablet and explaining something to Director Lee. Her expression was pleasant. Her eyes said something different. Yuna went into Director Lee's office, and the door closed. The hallway tried to return to normal, but not quite all the way. Something taut had stayed in the air. Amina headed back to the ER. Patients were waiting. The world could be falling apart, and the emergency rooms still didn't stop. During morning rounds, Marcus from the blood lab came up to Amina. Hey, Amina, you know the blood supply schedule for the 4th floor VIP ward got moved up? 2 days earlier, starting today. Amina paused. The 4th floor VIP ward. The kid she'd seen by the window the night before, watching the skyline. The two things started overlapping in her mind but hadn't connected yet. What's the patient's deal? Pediatrics. That's all I've got. Clearance levels high on that one. St. Luke's VIP ward ran out of a separate section at the far end of the 4th floor. Different routes, different access cards from the general ward. In 6 years, Amina had never gotten close to that wing it wasn't her department. But today she couldn't stop thinking about that hallway. Amina headed down to the blood bank after lunch, leaving half her food untouched. Routine check. The coordinator, Sophia, was sorting through paperwork. Hey, Sophia, do you know the blood type of the VIP pediatric patient on 4? AB negative, and a rare subtype within that. We've only got one donor match. I'm always scrambling to get the schedule to line up every month. Amina's hand stopped. AB negative. Rare subtype. One donor. Everyone knows their own blood type. Amina especially. On the day she went in for her first donation screening, the attending physician told her, it's really rare to see someone with this type come in to donate. At the time, it had sounded like a nice thing to say. No way. Sophia slid a form toward her, completely unaware. There's a donor ID number on file, but the identity's anonymous. Apparently, they've been coming in every month for the last 2 years. Amina didn't take the form. She had the feeling that if she took it, something would be confirmed, and she wasn't ready for that yet. So she just nodded, turned around, and walked out. 4th floor hallway. Amina stood in front of the entrance to the VIP ward. No access card, so she couldn't get in. Through the window, she could see the light on in one of the rooms. Same light that had been on the night before. Footsteps echoed from the far end of the corridor. Amina started to move, then stopped. The door to the room was slightly ajar. A kid, maybe 10, was looking at her through the crack in the door. The same kid she'd spotted by the window the night before, watching the skyline. Up close, his face was pale, but his eyes were sharp. Are you a nurse? Amina paused, then smiled. Yep, but you're not in my section. I know. This is my room, though. The kid pushed the door open a little more. Amina didn't go in, just leaned against the doorframe. The room was bigger than she expected. Medical equipment throughout. As a nurse, the equipment was the first thing she clocked. It wasn't outdated, but the kid who had to be hooked up to all of it was 10 years old. Nurse, are you going to be here for a while? Me? Probably. Everyone says probably. Nobody's definite about anything. Something about that stopped Amina. A 10-year-old using the word definite. Too old a word for his age, with too good a reason to be using it. I'm definite. I'm gonna be here. Sejun looked at Amina for a moment. Then he nodded. High heels clicked down the corridor from the other end. Yuna Choi. She was coming up to the 4th floor carrying a stack of papers. She spotted Amina and Sejun at the same time. Her stride hitched just for a beat, short enough that you almost wouldn't catch it, but Amina caught it. Sejun, go back inside. There's a draft. Sejun went in without a fuss. The door clicked shut. Yuna looked at Amina. Up close, the makeup was precise. There was the faintest tiredness under her eyes, and a lot of effort had gone into hiding it. This floor is restricted for general staff. The door was open. Going forward, don't come in even if it's open. The tone wasn't rude. It was colder than rude. A clear, deliberate line drawn in the air. Amina thought about where that line was coming from. Was it to protect Sejun? To keep Amina at a distance? Maybe both. Amina gave one nod and walked away. Yuna watched Amina go. She looked at the badge. Amina Brooks, head nurse, emergency department. She pulled out her phone and typed a note. Short. But the intention behind it wasn't short at all. That afternoon, Director Lee called Amina into his office. He closed the conference room door and sat down, and his face looked heavier than the day before. Amina, I'm going to be straight with you. The acquisition's happening decision's coming within 3 months. Staff reassignment plans coming with it. Amina was quiet for a moment. 3 months. Could be 2. I don't have any way around this. KM Group's already going through the city council approval process, I'm told. Through the window, she could see the sky. Low and overcast. Amina looked at it and thought of Lucia. Thought of the man in bed 4. Thought of Sejun, the 10-year-old who said nobody was definite about anything. As she stepped out of the conference room, Amina asked one more question. Dr. Lee, the pediatric patient in the VIP ward on 4 who's the attending. Director Lee paused. In that pause, Amina read everything she needed to. That's Jamin Kang's son, Sejun. Rare blood disorder. Long-term inpatient. Amina stood in the hallway and quietly let that land. Jamin Kang's son, Sejun. Rare blood disorder. The kid who received blood from the same donor every single month. The kid sitting by the window telling her nobody was definite about anything. So that kid is his son. The connections were lining up in her head, but the biggest ones still hadn't clicked into place. Amina didn't have it yet. That evening, Jamin showed up at Sejun's room. Amina caught it by accident from the far end of the 4th floor hallway. Through the door's window, she could see Jamin sitting beside Sejun's bed. Father and son. Jamin had loosened his tie. Sejun had a book on his lap. No words between them. But this silence was nothing like the one in the lobby yesterday. That lobby silence was cold. This one was just quiet. Sejun said something. Too far away for Amina to hear. Jamin answered, brief. Sejun said something else. Something shifted in Jamin's eyes just for a second, but visible even from the end of the hall. Amina moved along. She knew it wasn't her scene to watch. Close to midnight, Yuna sent an email to Sophia in the blood bank. Sophia didn't open it until the next morning. It was a formal request for information on Sejun's blood supplier, filed through the official channel, completely by the book, totally legal, which somehow made it more unsettling. Sophia stared blankly at the screen for a moment, not sure where in the world she was supposed to report this. Toward the end of the night shift, Amina pulled up her donation appointment again. She had one coming up next month, her 25th. She stared at the screen and replayed what she'd heard at the blood bank. AB negative, rare subtype, 1 donor, every month for the past 2 years. She'd started donating exactly 2 years ago. No, it's got to be a coincidence. But the coincidence fit together too cleanly, like a puzzle piece clicking in. Amina bit her bottom lip, then let go. She could find out if she wanted to just ask Sophia, but she didn't want to find out tonight. Brittany passed by, getting her stuff together to leave. Amina, you look off today. Something going on? Nothing. I'm fine. A lie. But she couldn't explain what was actually going on yet, so she just kept it to herself. Brittany left, and Amina was alone at the nurse's station. The fluorescents hummed quietly, not like the ones at the donation center. No flicker here. Amina pulled up her computer. Her blood donation records loaded. 2 years of entries. 24. And there was a recipient code marked anonymous. She stared at the numbers one by one. She looked at that code for a long time. The code that told her where 2 years' worth of her blood had gone. Anonymous at the recipient's request, probably. Someone had a reason to hide their name. Who's behind this code? She closed the screen. Amina knew some files gave you nothing even when you opened them. And the files that actually had answers, those needed to be opened when you were ready. Through the window, the Bronx dawn was already beginning. The sky just before sunrise. Not fully light, not fully dark. The in-between. At the far end of the 4th floor, the light in Sejun's room was still on. The kid wasn't sleeping, looked like. He was sitting by the window again, not looking at the city skyline this time. Just the dark sky. Amina watched that light through the corridor window. She stood there a long time. The feeling that something had already been connecting her to this child for a long time before she had a name for it. The next morning, Sophia messaged her, asking how to handle Yuna's request for the donor information. Amina read it and went still. Yuna was going after whoever was behind that anonymous code. She was running out of time for St. Luke's, for the code, and maybe for herself. The Bronx sunrise came right on schedule. Same as always, the world wasn't waiting on Amina. Sophia, my donor code and the recipient code for the VIP patient on 4, are they the same or different? Amina was the one who unlocked the blood bank that morning, before Sophia even came in. She'd sat down in the dark and waited. No coffee. Phone still in her pocket. Today, she had to look at that code. There was no more reason to put it off. Sophia walked in and stopped when she saw Amina. Amina, what are you doing here? Your shift doesn't start for another hour. Couldn't stop thinking last night. Sophia, I need your help. Sophia put her coat on the hook and settled in. The kind of wordless understanding that comes with years of working alongside someone. Sophia opened the system, pulled up both codes side by side on the screen. Amina looked at them. 2 rows of numbers, laid out neat. She could see how close together they sat. Amina. Just her name. That was all Sophia said. The codes matched. Amina didn't say a word. She just stared at the screen. 2 years of records, right there. 24 times. Her blood had gone into that kid's body 24 times. A kid she hadn't known by name. And his name was Sejun, Jamin Kang's son. 2 years. It's been 2 years. Sophia quietly slid a glass of water toward her. Amina took it, but didn't drink. She thought of her mother. A single drop of your blood could be someone's whole world. It was, literally. For that kid, Amina's blood was everything. And the kid's father had called her the cleaning staff. Sophia spoke. Yuna Choi requested the donor information. What do you want me to do? Process it the normal way. If it came through official channels, I can't stop it. Amina got up, handed the glass back to Sophia, still untouched, and walked out of the blood bank. Out in the hallway, Amina stopped, leaned against the wall. The corridor was empty. The fluorescents were on and steady. No flicker. Amina looked up at the light. Do I have the right to be angry? Do I want to laugh? Maybe both. Either way, she had work to do. Night shift handover was waiting. The morning shift kicked off. Amina moved like she always did. Rounds, prescriptions, getting Lucia her morning meds. Lucia was holding a comic book today. Amina kept walking. But behind her eyes, the image of those 2 codes lined up on the screen kept coming back. At 11 in the morning, a page came from the 4th floor. Dr. Chambers, Sejun's attending. Not Amina's ward, but Chambers had specifically asked for her. Amina, Sejun's numbers have been unstable since this morning. The blood supply got pushed back 3 days this month. Can you come take a look? Amina didn't hesitate. 4th floor VIP ward. Amina walked through that door for the first time with an access card. The room was quiet. Sejun was in the bed, paler than yesterday. The monitors kept their steady rhythm. She picked up the chart. Her hands trembled slightly. Sejun opened his eyes. You're the nurse from yesterday. Yep. I'm here for real this time. What hurts? I'm dizzy. Everything keeps spinning. Amina put her hand on Sejun's wrist, checked his pulse. Cold. Small hands. Dr. Chambers came in. The two of them talked quietly. Platelet count, supply timeline, backup options. Amina read the numbers in the chart as they spoke, numbers she had helped put there every month, without missing once. And this was what happened when those numbers got pushed back by 3 days. I'd love to reach out to the donor, but they're anonymous. Can't contact them directly. Amina paused. Then, very quietly, she said it. I'm the donor. Chambers looked at her. A long silence. The monitors kept going. You sure? I confirmed the codes this morning. Chambers sat down. The weight of it was in that movement. Amina kept her eyes on Sejun. Sejun was staring at the ceiling. No idea what the two adults were saying about him. Can you do it today? Yes. Short and clear. Amina went down to the blood bank that afternoon, mid-shift, 3 days ahead of schedule. The blood draw chair was cold like it always was. Amina didn't notice. That same afternoon, Yuna was in a meeting with the hospital's legal team, going over the procedure for disclosing donor information. While she reviewed the documents, she quietly sent a request through a separate channel faster than the official one. An hour later, she had a response. Yuna read the screen. Then she stopped reading. Donor name, Amina Brooks. Occupation, head nurse, St. Luke's Community Hospital. Mother's name, Marcia Brooks. Deceased. Former occupation, housekeeper. Notable employment history. KM Group Chairman Kang's residence, 2005-2008. Reason for termination. Fired under theft allegation. Yuna closed the screen. Her hands gripped the table. Yuna called Jamin. He picked up on the first ring. Jamin, the donor's been ID'd. You need to come see this yourself. Jamin was at the hospital by 6 in the evening. Yuna had her laptop open and waiting. Jamin stood over it and read. Slowly. Jamin's hands rested on the table and didn't move. Yuna tried to read his expression, but couldn't. Jamin was the kind of person who rarely let anything show on his face. Her mother's name was Marcia Brooks. Not a question. Yuna nodded. Jamin looked back at the screen. Marcia Brooks. Jamin had first heard that name when he was 22. The name of a housekeeper his father, Chairman Kong, had ordered terminated. Jamin hadn't gotten involved. It was a household matter, not his territory. He'd let it go. Some things you let go have a way of coming back. Jamin, if it comes out that this woman is Sejun's donor, it's going to get messy. We're in the middle of acquisition talks. What are you saying? If she finds out, if this goes to the press, think about what that does to public opinion. Jamin was quiet for a moment. Outside, the New York lights blinked in the dark. At that same moment, Amina was at the nurse's station in the ER on her third set of forms for the day. Her arm had been a little tender since getting back from the blood draw, but she wasn't paying attention to that. Chambers had sent word that Sejun's numbers had stabilized that afternoon. That was enough. Thank God. Brittany came and sat next to her. Sophia told me. You're the donor for that kid upstairs. Amina didn't respond. It wasn't a situation that called for a response or didn't call for one. It was both. That kid's dad called you the cleaning lady yesterday. Amina set down her paperwork. Brittany, I wasn't donating to get anything back. I know. Still, doesn't it just make you want to lose it? It does. But Sejun didn't do anything wrong. Brittany looked at Amina for a moment. Then she let out a long breath. A lot of things were mixed up in that breath. On his way out of the hospital, Jamin stopped in front of Sejun's room, looked in. Sejun was asleep. The monitors hummed. His color looked better than that afternoon. Jamin put his hand on the door handle and didn't go in, just stood there. The light from the far end of the hallway hit his back. Yuna came up behind him. Jamin, you need to make a call. About what? Amina Brooks. Getting her out of this hospital is the right move. Before things get complicated. Jamin took his hand off the door handle. He looked at Yuna. Something in his eyes was different now from when he'd walked past Amina in the lobby. Something had shifted. Jamin didn't answer. He walked to the elevator. Yuna watched him go. No answer meant not yes and not no. Yuna decided to read it as yes. There was still enough room to read it that way. Past midnight, Amina walked all the way to the far end of the fourth-floor hallway. The light in Sejun's room was off. Looked like he was finally asleep. She stood in front of the door for a moment, then turned back. Sleep well, kid. The one I never knew the name of. Walking back through the hall, Amina looked out the corridor window at the Bronx at night. Lights on in the windows. People still awake. People asleep. Same thing inside this hospital. People who were sick, people getting better, people just holding on. She had a feeling Yuna would show up tomorrow with official paperwork. She already had a pretty good sense of what it was going to say. 2 years. Amina had spent 2 years not knowing what she was actually doing, just following her mother's words. Nothing more. But those 2 years had now connected to everything in this moment. The woman called the cleaning staff, the son of the man who called her that, and the name of a mother wrongfully cast out long ago. All of it was threading together on a single line. The world was circling back, and it was circling back faster than even Amina could keep up with. Amina, if you sign these today, we'll process it as a voluntary resignation. The director's office door closed. Yuna slid the paperwork across the table. 3 pages, stacked clean from top to bottom. Her nails were short and neat. There were red stickers marking the signature lines. Amina looked at them. Director Lee was sitting in the corner chair, staring at the floor. He'd called her here, and now he had nothing to say. Amina saw it the director had already lost. What's the reason? Restructuring post-acquisition. Getting ahead of it now is actually better for you. Amina picked up the documents. Read through them slowly. 3 pages. Severance terms, non-disclosure clause, and at the bottom, a 1-page addendum. That addendum had numbers in it. Amina was reading through them when she stopped. A donor code. Her code. Yuna had known from the start. Whoever drafted this knew exactly what I had. Amina set the papers back on the table. Not loudly, but with enough sound. Yuna heard it. Sejun's treatment will continue. You don't need to worry about that. We'll find another donor. The moment those words landed, the director's office door swung open. Jamin Kang. His tie was looser than yesterday. No expression, but different eyes. Yuna went rigid. She hadn't known he was coming. Jamin looked at Yuna, then at Amina, then at the papers on the table. In that order. The order meant something. Jamin, we're running prep for the announcement. Hold on. Jamin picked up the papers and read them, all the way through, including the addendum. Nobody spoke while he did it. Not Director Lee, not Yuna, not Amina. Faint sounds from the monitors drifted in from somewhere. Probably not Sejun's room on 4, but to Amina, it sounded like it was. Jamin put the papers down. This is Amina's donor code? Yuna cut in. Jamin, let's talk about that part later. Right now. Yes, it is. Yuna's words got cut off. Amina had answered directly. Jamin looked at Amina. The woman he'd called the cleaning staff in the lobby. The woman who'd shown up at the blood bank every month for 2 years. Marsha Brooks's daughter. All of that was one person. Amina looked back at Jamin. No words, but her eyes said something. And it landed. Yuna stepped forward. Amina, the terms we're offering aren't bad. The severance package is above market. Amina looked at Yuna. Then she slowly stood up, pushed the chair back and moved to stand beside the table. The height changed. Standing, she was eye level with Yuna. You called my mom the help. Her blood is what's keeping your son alive right now. The director's office went completely still. Director Lee looked up for the first time. Yuna's face went stiff. Jamin didn't move. Amina never raised her voice. Not once. That made it hit harder. Yuna tried again. Coming at this emotionally isn't going to. I'm not being emotional right now. That was true. Amina's hands were steady. Her voice wasn't cracking. And somehow, that was what rattled Yuna. An unshaken person carries more weight than a shaken one. Jamin spoke to Yuna. Low. Give us a minute. Jamin. A minute. Yuna held for a beat, then walked out. The door closed. Just Jamin, Amina, and Director Lee in the room. Director Lee still wasn't saying anything. Jamin walked to the window. The New York afternoon was out there on the other side. He slipped his hands into his coat pockets. Didn't check his watch. Didn't look at his phone. Just looked out. Your mother's name was Marcia Brooks. Not a question. Yes. Jamin turned around. She worked at our family's home. A long time ago. Did you know that? I found out last night. There was something old between them. Something neither of them had made. But it was underneath where they were both standing. My mother didn't steal anything. Jamin didn't respond. Didn't push back. The silence told Amina what kind of silence it was. The kind that knows. The kind that can't argue. She took it. Jamin picked up the papers again. Set them back down. These documents. I'm not signing. Understood. Director Lee coughed for the first time. And announcing myself cough. Neither of them looked at him. Amina gathered the papers and set them where Yuna had been sitting. Before you tear down this hospital, you're gonna have to go through me first. At those words, Jamin closed his eyes for just a second, then opened them. Amina saw it. He wasn't falling apart, and he wasn't angry. His eyes looked like the eyes of someone making a decision. Amina walked out of the director's office. Yuna was standing in the hallway. They came face to face. Something flashed across Yuna's expression. Whether it was anger or calculation or something she didn't expect, it was hard to say. Maybe all three moving fast. I'll keep donating for Sejun. Don't worry about his blood supply. Yuna said nothing. Amina took the stairs. Not the elevator. Going down, step by step. Her hands started to shake just a little. Everything she'd held together to keep from trembling in that room was working its way out now, stair by stair. Mom, did I do okay today? When she got to the ER, Brittany rushed over. Amina, are you okay? What happened in the director's office? Nothing happened. Do we have patients? Brittany studied Amina's face. Looked like she was about to ask something, then stopped. Just handed her a clipboard. Amina took it and walked. Back in the director's office, Jamin and Yuna were sitting across from each other. Yuna spoke first. Jamin, the announcement is in 2 hours. We already called the press. I know. Then what that nurse said doesn't change anything. Jamin looked at his watch. For the first time. 2 hours. Jamin stood up, grabbed his coat. Where are you going? To see Sejun. Yuna started to say something after that, then stopped. When Jamin said he was going to see Sejun, there was nothing you could attach to it. 4th floor room. Sejun was awake. Better color than yesterday. He looked up when Jamin came in. Dad, isn't today the announcement? Yeah. Are you going after, or did you come before? Jamin paused. Before. Sejun nodded. Then after a moment he said, that nurse came again today. I told her I was dizzy, and she came. Jamin listened and looked out the window. New York sky. Low and heavy. Dad, is that nurse going to stay here? Jamin had an answer ready, but it wouldn't come out. 2 hours until the announcement. He knew what that announcement was. He knew what it meant for this kid. Sejun didn't know yet. I don't know. Sejun nodded. Even a 10-year-old seemed to understand that I don't know was better than no. Jamin laid a hand on top of Sejun's head for a moment, then took it away. That was how they were with each other. Jamin stepped out of the room and stood in the hallway for a second. Amina's words were still in his ears. Before you tear down this hospital, you're gonna have to go through me first. There are people you can go through and people you can't. Every person Jamin had ever faced before, he'd been able to go through them, but not today. In the ER, Amina finished her afternoon rounds. Lucia was looking out the window today. It was snowing a little outside. The first snow of the Bronx November. Lucia looked at Amina. Nurse Amina, it's snowing. Amina went to the window. It was snowing. Small, light flakes. About an hour later, journalists started coming through the lobby. KM Group's acquisition announcement event was getting underway. Lights set up, microphones in place. Director Lee appeared in a full suit. Amina watched the whole thing from the second-floor hallway window. What happens now? Brittany came up beside her. Doesn't watching that scare you? Amina thought about it for a second. Was she scared? She was, but that wasn't all of it. Some things you're scared of and you still don't leave. This hallway was that kind of thing for Amina. Yeah, it scares me, but I'm not going anywhere. Brittany didn't say a word. She just stood there, next to Amina. I came here today to announce a new beginning for St. Luke's Community Hospital. The room went quiet. Reporters stopped writing. Cameras swung to Jamin's face. I came here to. Past tense. Not in the prepared remarks. Not once. Una, standing to the side of the podium, went stone still. The event space, built out of the lobby, held around 50 people. Medical community figures, city council members, press. The lights were bright. A banner with the KM Group logo hung behind Jamin, with a podium in front of it. He'd unfolded the prepared statement and placed it on the podium. Then he closed it. From the second-floor hallway window, Amina was watching. Brittany was next to her. She'd seen him close the statement. Her hand rested on the windowsill. What's he doing? The energy in the room below was changing, and you could feel it from up here. Jamin scanned the room. Front row, middle, back. Then he looked up. Second floor hallway window. His eyes landed on Amina. 1 second, but that 1 second stretched. Jamin stepped 1 foot closer to the microphone. I'm going to amend today's announcement. Murmuring broke out in the room. Una took 1 step toward the podium. Jamin saw it and kept going. I'm withdrawing the acquisition of St. Luke's Community Hospital. The second wave of murmuring was much louder than the first. A journalist raised a hand. Jamin didn't look at them. Una moved to the side of the podium, said something in a low voice. Jamin shook his head once. Short and definite. Una stopped. Jamin reached for the microphone again. The room settled. Cameras locked onto him all at once. And there's one more thing I need to say. Jamin paused. All 50-some people in that room held their breath through that pause. Jamin looked up at the second floor 1 more time. Amina was still there. Her hand on the windowsill had tightened. KM Group is making an official public apology today. 18 years ago, a woman was unjustly terminated from employment at the Kang family residence. Her name is Marcia Brooks. The theft allegation against her was not true. It was our family's wrongdoing. That name, through the microphone, filled every corner of the room. Marcia Brooks. On the second floor, Amina grabbed the windowsill with both hands. Brittany grabbed Amina's arm. Amina breathed in, and she didn't let go. Somewhere inside, something was coming loose. The feeling of something she'd been gripping tight for a long time, slowly releasing from her hands. Down in the event space, journalists looked at each other. A city council member got up and walked out. Someone pulled out a phone. These were people calculating what it all meant. Jamin watched their reactions and still didn't let go of the microphone. Restoring Marcia's name is the least we can do from where I'm standing. Una walked out of the room. Her footsteps carried. Jamin didn't turn around. The prepared statement sat folded on the podium, all the things he'd written and never said. Instead, the words he did say were on record now. Brittany tried to say something to Amina. Amina raised her hand. Don't. Brittany went quiet. Amina pressed her forehead against the glass. Cold. She was glad it was cold, because the backs of her eyes were on fire. Mom, did you hear that? It took about 30 minutes to clear the room after the event. Reporters swarmed Jamin, and Jamin answered their questions. Short. Precise. St. Luke's operations would continue under the current structure. No staff layoffs planned. Compensation for Marcia Brooks would be negotiated with next of kin. Those words drifted all the way down the corridor. The ER got loud. Nurses running around with their phones. Brittany was shouting, "Amina, check the news. It's blowing up right now." Amina didn't pull out her phone. Instead, she walked to Lucia's room. Lucia was looking out the window. Still snowing, just a little. "Nurse Amina, are they not tearing down our hospital today?" "Nope, not tearing it down." Lucia nodded, looked back out the window. That was it. Kids sometimes finish in 2 sentences what adults need a whole afternoon to sort out. Jamin showed up at the ER entrance an hour after the event ended. Tie completely off, stuffed in his coat pocket. Amina was at the nurse's station. She saw him come in. For the first time, the two of them were standing in the same room, not just passing in a corridor. "I'd like to hear more about your mother, if you're willing." Amina looked at him. The man who'd called her the cleaning staff. The man who'd said her mother's name into a microphone. Both of those things lived inside the same person. That's how people are not made of just one thing. "I'm going to need some time." "Of course." Jamin didn't say anything else. He didn't turn to leave either. Just stood there for a moment, then added, "Sejun talks about you a lot." Amina didn't answer that, but the very corner of her mouth moved. Jamin went up to the 4th floor. Amina sat back down. Brittany came over and held out a cup of coffee. Amina took it, and this time, she drank it. Outside, the snow had stopped. The Bronx streets were covered in white, new things stacking up over old things the way they do. On her walk home that evening, Amina stopped in front of the donation center for a moment. Didn't go in. Her next appointment was already on the books. 25th. The fluorescent light in the hallway was still flickering. Every 2 seconds. Same as always. Amina looked at it, and she smiled. Not the sharp, cool smile from before. St. Luke's Community Hospital stayed exactly where it was. The spray-painted words on the outer wall stayed too. "This is why we're still alive." KM Group entered into a formal agreement process with Marcia Brooks's next of kin. Amina didn't take part in those proceedings. She didn't want her name on any of the paperwork. Her mother's name was enough. Sejun was discharged the following spring. His treatment wasn't completely finished, but he'd gotten well enough for outpatient care. Amina ran into him in the hallway on his way out. "Nurse Amina, I'm going home." "I know. That's great. I'll come back and visit." Amina nodded. Sejun smiled. His face wasn't pale anymore. After that, Jamin and Amina talked slowly and very carefully. Neither of them was in a hurry. The weight of the past was there, and they both felt it. But that weight didn't push them apart. Some weight becomes the thing you build on. One afternoon in the spring, Jamin waited for Amina outside St. Luke's. Not during her commute in, during her commute home. For 2 years, Amina had quietly done what her mother asked of her, giving something of herself to a stranger. That the stranger turned out to be the son of the man who'd once called her the cleaning staff? She didn't find that out until much later. The world pays back old debts in ways like this sometimes. It ties an invisible thread between people, then pulls it taut at exactly the moment nobody saw coming. Every morning, Amina sat in that blood-draw chair and finished her orange juice. That thread was getting a little shorter. Good things don't always happen in the light, do they? There are people like Amina, people who show up at 5 in the morning, in places nobody's watching, and give something of themselves to a stranger they'll never meet. Even when that goes unrecognized for years, the world holds on to those quiet acts of goodness. It holds on to them in its own way, in its own time. The way it gives them back might not be anything like what we expected. Amina sure never imagined her mother's name being spoken into a microphone in a room full of cameras and press. And here's the other thing this story won't let us forget. The way you look at people matters. When the eye that called someone the cleaning staff has to stand before the truth that her hands were what kept his son alive, that's not a light place to be in, now is it? So maybe today we think twice before writing someone off. What you see in front of you is never the whole person. Just like Marcia's words to her daughter that a single drop of blood could be someone's whole world without even knowing it. We are already keeping each other alive. This story is a work of fiction. End. 24 번의 새벽. 24 Dawns. ENV 1.0.